How's it going? Welcome to the Caffeinated Coordinator Show. So happy to be here for episode 1. I am your co-host, Scott Pellegrin. Coach Pell, throwing it over to everybody's favorite offensive coach to the other side of the ball.
Coach Gaspard here. Welcome to the very first episode of the Caffeinated Coordinators.
We are also joined by our producer, the guy, the technician, the man with the plan, Coach Brownfield.
Oh, thank you. Using Pell's music here.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. Hey, man, if a wrestling thing don't get you fired up at 6:30 in the morning, I don't know what will.
I think the coffee does a pretty good job.
The coffee does a good job, too. So we can kick this off, starting with the premise of the show. All right, obviously, we coach football. We work on the same team.
Right.
I coordinate the defense. You coordinate the offense. And you chop a lot of things up in the office, in the coach's office. And it's like, you know what? Let's hit record and see what happens, see if we can have a little fun with this. And the caffeine always helps because when you work 80 hours a week, you need a little boosty boost, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely.
So what we're trying to do here is, for episode 1, we're gonna toss around some ideas as far as what is it mean to be a teacher and a coach? Okay, how do those things work together? Are they different? Are they the same? Is there some kind of divide between teachers and coaches in the school building? Really, just an introduction to what we do, how we do it, and really how more goes into what we do on the field than meets the eye.
And, you know, to add on to that, there's more than one way to skin a cat. This is just our opinions when doing this. You know, other people might have their own opinions, but our experiences are going to go into what we decide through this podcast.
Absolutely.
For country folk, for people who aren't country folk, more than one way to skin a cat is talking about skinning catfish, not cats. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't.
This is a southern.
They don't. So
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that either till just now. I never asked anybody about skinning actual cats. I didn't think that was a thing, but I was just going to take everybody's word for it. But skinning a catfish, that makes a whole lot more sense. See, where I'm from, we skin more speckled trout because we live near the salt water.
I mean, you got channel cats. You catch a bunch of those.
Ooh, hardheads, Kenny.
But it's not hardhead. Channel cats are different.
I don't know.
There we go.
But anyway, back to football. I feel like that's what people came here to listen to, not us hillbilly Cajun folk. So, G, talk to me. Teaching versus coaching, are they the same? Are they different? What are the misconceptions? What are some things you've seen in your career? What, 5 years, 6 years?
I'm just finished 5th year of coaching football.
Okay.
You know, I think we get, I guess you can say, on a player football term is underrated. What we do day in and day out. When I was back in my playing days, you know, one of our coaches said, if you can teach something, you understand it. So I think that ties into being a teacher and being a coach because in the classroom, you have so many different personalities. On a football team, you have so many different personalities. So it's more on the lines of how do you handle those different personalities to get them all to do the same thing or get them aligned to the same goal. And on the football field, you want the same thing. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to make state. Where's the common ground to get everybody to go into that direction?
Well, absolutely, and I'll just jump right in, I guess, to the I don't want to say negative, but the negative aspect of it. So, coaches, and you probably notice this even when you're in school, if you paid attention to it, I know I did. Coaches are kind of considered, that's the PE teacher. That's every coach teaches history. They teach civics. They teach some of the quote unquote easier stuff. And what I think a lot of people don't actually realize is that a lot of the organizational tactics that are required in the classroom are required in the locker room and on the football field.
Absolutely.
You know, things like routine. You know, how do the best teachers handle their discipline? Everybody's going to do it a little bit different, but I think it's all grounded in they have a routine. Over here at our school, for example, especially in the freshman area, a lot of teachers do the cell phone pockets for the kids. They'll collect them. The kids know from the first day, okay, come in, drop my phone, go to my seat, get started on my bell ringer, introductory assignment, whatever the case may be. Some teachers might not do that, but they have a different process for how to come in, get seated, get to work.
Right.
And a lot of that translates to the field. And a lot of it has to do with one of my favorite organizational tactics on the football field to kind of help with that is timing. Because think about a class period. You got 120 minutes, or you got 90 minutes, or you got 53 minutes like I had when I was at South Lafourche. We had a 7-period day. So you had to chunk that together. Okay, this is going to take this long. This is going to take this long, and
It's a practice plan.
Absolutely, it's a practice plan. And at practice, that clock can't just be a guide. That thing's got to be damn near law.
Right.
Because you only got so much attention span. It's easy to say we're going to practice for 2.5 hours after school till we get it right, but you only got so much attention span there.
Yes, and 2.5 hours for one day is okay, but when you do it for 3 days a week, for 10, 11, 12 weeks, that's whenever it gets freaking repetitive and very tiring.
Absolutely, and you're trying to go the distance, man. We were talking about this in our office. I think towards the end of the season, how do you start adjusting practice when the weather starts cooling off? Because especially here in Louisiana, it's 110 degrees until the last week of October, and then, like you said, those attention spans are shrinking. The kids are kind of tired. You're trying to go and make a run, so you got to find that second wind somewhere. Do you come off? How much do you come off? And that's when you got to start looking at those chunked pieces of practice. You got to figure out, man, this took 10 minutes in week 3. Well, we should be able to get it done in 6 now.
Right.
Because we should be more efficient. But I think that same thing, the classroom translates to the field and vice versa, in my personal opinion.
I think I guess you can say not the smarter teachers, that's the wrong way to say it, but if you really think about it, the teachers that understand that, you can tell who respects us and who doesn't as far as what we do in our job. Even administrators, some of them will even bring that up in an observation meeting or something, like, just be you, like coaching is teaching. And it makes a lot of sense whenever you sit down and think back to what all the preparation is for a lesson and for a practice or for a game and a test. Like has a lot of similarities.
And so I came from before I started working here, I came from a highly academic parish. And not that this one isn't, it's just we spent a ton of time in professional development teaching people how to teach. And they loved backwards design. And those who majored in education probably got beat over the head with that in college, where you start with the end in mind and then you work in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Which it makes a lot of sense. I'm not hating on it at all, but it makes a lot of sense. But it's funny because in that parish, I'm not going to say coaches weren't respected, but you were a teacher first, and you were reminded of that every day. Even
right.
if you didn't try to be a coach first, you were reminded, even if you understood the concept of where you worked. It was actually kind of ridiculous at some point, but I digress. But they were like, oh, backwards design, PD, you're a teacher first, all this type of stuff. And me and some of the coaches were sitting around one day, and it's like, is that not what we already do? I mean, you watch the film, you get an idea of what the other team's going to do, all right, and you write all that down, or if you're a defensive coach, you draw the cards, and you try to draw them as specific as possible, and you try to get the scout team figured out, and the exact same thing on offense. Are they in a 4-man, a 3-man? Where does that extra backer come? Where's the blitzer come? So once you get all that homework done, then you start working in reverse. What do I got to work on Monday to get them ready for Friday?
Right.
Tuesday for Friday, and then so on down the line. And it's just funny. You're a teacher first. Yeah, I know, and I'm teaching after school too.
Yeah. So let me ask you this about the teacher first thing, because I see both, I guess, sides of it. So they say you're a teacher before you're a coach. Is that different than telling an athlete that he's a student before he's an athlete?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think it's the same in the sense that the teaching job pays the mortgage
right.
in our line of work
right.
in high school. And then
The coaching job lets you go play golf.
absolutely, and ride in Mardi Gras and
Yeah.
do some more degenerate activities that I do enjoy the rest of the year. We can get to that another time. But for the student, the student athlete thing, I mean, I think the student part is more important in the sense of that pays your mortgage. That gets you across the stage. That gets you into college
Absolutely.
if that's what you want to do. That gets you into your trade school, or that gets you enough grades if you just don't want to do nothing after high school and just go find whatever work you want to do. You
So
got
it's-
you got to get across the stage first.
Basically like plan A.
Yeah,
And
it's
your
plan
athlete is
A.
plan B,
Yeah.
or plan A2.
Because we could get into the percentages, I'm sure, and I feel like they change all the time. But of not many people could go to college for athletics. That's a very, very minute.
Oh, absolutely.
And then that makes me think of travel ball and parents and all the other things that go along with this. But yeah, I definitely think teacher first. I'm all about it. And yeah, you got to keep. I never personally loved being around coaches who constantly were talking about, oh man, we're coaches. They don't understand us. We're coaches. Well, actually, teachers, like, assistants work for the head coach. The assistants also work in the school, so we work for the principal, the head coach. Everybody, it's the principal's school.
Yes.
Like the buck stops with somebody, and athletics are a piece of that and a very important piece of that. But the buck does stop with somebody, so you got to take care of your 7 to 2:30 before you take care of your 2:30 to 5.
I've heard that same thing from coaches, and the thing is, I've never heard that from a successful coach.
Interesting.
There's a lot to be said with that.
It's interesting.
So if I could sidebar into a story about Coach Gaines, Cecilia High School, they're in the semis this week. Go Bulldogs. He was big on that because my first coaching job out of college, I coached a little bit as a student, but first one out of college was with him at South Lafourche, and he would make it a point to go to the front office. There was 3 new teachers on our staff that year, and ask how we were doing in the classroom because he knew where he was. He knew that was important to them.
Absolutely.
So to keep training us up as young coaches, he knew he had to keep us good in the building. That way, we would stay around.
And it
because
also kept him good.
absolutely, because he got to
played
go,
the game.
He played the game, But it killed 2 birds. He got to play the game. He got to go, ask them about the stuff that was important to them in the
Right,
front
absolutely.
office. But also, he wanted to keep a staff together in a place that it was hard to keep a staff together because it was at the end of the earth. Nobody was moving down there, so.
It seemed like he was keeping the balance, too. Like he kept the athletics to administration balance there.
Absolutely, he kept a strong, I don't want to say friendship, but he kept a strong relationship there. That way, if he had to go, I don't know, ask for, and he never told me this, it's just speculation as I got
Right.
older and kind of realized what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He kept that relationship good, If he had to go ask for something, well, you catch more flies with honey, right? He played their game. He didn't sit with coaches at PD. He sat with some of the experienced teachers and made them laugh. And he was a good-looking young guy. And he sat with some of the women, and he was just Mr. Charm. And everybody was sad to see him go. We didn't win a ton of games. We were 500. I think both years he was there, a little bit above. I think it was 4-6, 6-4. Yeah, we were 500. Everybody was sad to see him go. Teachers, admin, coaches, players. I mean, it was, to this day, one of the saddest things I've seen in the game. And I've seen 100 seniors cry after their last game, but I didn't see people cry like when that man left because he was just a good dude.
Right.
And he cared about the academics. He cared about the coaches. He cared about the kids, and you could see it was genuine.
Right.
It wasn't just, oh, we love you.
And when your head coach and coaches in general buy in, it helps show the kids and it's like a bridge to close that gap to get the kids to buy in.
Absolutely. So let's shift a little bit here. I want to ask you, scheme versus technique. So the name of the show is Caffeinated Coordinators. We coordinate each side of the ball,
Right.
and there's an emphasis on scheme that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the backward design and the educational aspect where you see what they do and then you try to play and practice as a result. But what's the balance between scheme versus technique? How do those two work together? Is one more important than the other?
I think they're in their own separate category, so I don't think you can really compare them because they work together. I've always believed in the whole part whole, and I think your whole is your scheme, and I think your technique is your part. Um, you know, one of my college coaches used to say it's like writing an essay. The old school writing an essay, you have introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction is tell them what you're going to tell them. That's the first part of your whole. Hey, this is what we're doing this week. This is what we're trying to accomplish as a team. Excuse me. The part, that's the body. Tell them what you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them. Okay, so tell them. So now, this is everything we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. Okay, that's your technique. This is how you skid pull. This is how you bucket step pull. This is how you pass set. This is how you take a handoff. This is how you take a 3-step drop. This is how you run a slant, so on and so forth. Then the conclusion is tell them what you told them. But now you bring it all back together. Hey, let's run a play now. So I think they're kind of in a separate category that works hand in hand with each other.
You just say skip pull?
Yeah.
That is the work of the devil, to coin a phrase from Bobby Boucher's mother.
Well, and you know,
Skip pulling.
I don't even teach it, so I don't know even why I said it.
I'm a linebackers guy. I hate things that muddy my reads.
Yeah, well, I don't even teach it though. Like I don't like a skip pull as an offensive guy. I'm more of a bucket step. I don't know. I don't like crossing feet, and that's some big boys right there. Not as many of them are as athletic to do that.
Bucket step and get to where you're going, right?
That's my bucket step.
No, you're not gonna see me just crap on a whole lot of schemes, but I'm like, man, that stuff that muddies my read is what makes me mad. Speaking of things that, but I don't know, man. So I came up with a more technique, with mentors that stressed more the technique aspect and the fundamental aspect versus getting on the whiteboard and just drawing for days. You know, some of the people I've been around kind of were comfortable in their scheme and made it a point to, we're going to teach them how to run the scheme now. We're going to teach them how to get that step, read that gap, do this, do that. But I think also that comes with, you've got to develop a scheme that you're comfortable enough with to where there's going to be very few adjustments and changes year to year.
And you have to make sure it fits your players and their style.
And to me, that's part of developing a scheme is, you know, flexible enough to where you could adjust to different people. I'll give you an example. There's a high school in our area, and people that know me personally get tired of hearing me say this. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. But Zachary High, I'll give him props because I'm, you know, everybody aspires to be knocking on the door of the dome for the 5th time.
Right.
But they have a handful of base plays: screen, duo, some gap scheme, traditional power and counter, quick game.
Yeah.
That's essentially their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I first moved to the Baton Rouge area in 2019, they had a more athletic running style quarterback. So they took those plays and then they turned the page in the playbook. All right, well, now how do we run those plays with quarterback runs, quarterback options off of them? And had a lot of success with it. Well, the next 2 years, they had a more taller, stand in the pocket passer who could throw it a country mile on a dime. And not that he couldn't run. I know in my opinion, he was like a Trevor Lawrence. He was sneaky athletic, but he wasn't going to run. But anyway, they turned the other page in the playbook. They still ran screens, quick game, gap scheme, duo. Well, now we got a little vertical passing attack for you. We got a few more fades than we normally throw. And then the following year, which I guess would be this year, they went back to the drawing board. They didn't really do anything special. They didn't turn any more pages. They turned the page the opposite way.
They went back to mama.
We're going back to mama.
Yeah.
You could always go home to mama.
Yeah.
Shout out to Coach Rollins. Mama will always take you back. But to me, that's an effective scheme. And then to build on that, don't the whiteboard warrior for a second. Don't tell me what my gap is, and then don't tell me how to defend it. You know, anybody could say, well, all right, I'm drawing this on the board. You got this gap, you got this gap, you got this coverage, you got this coverage. Well, what's the curl flat? What's the A gap?
Right.
How do I play it? Well, it's in that area. Well, that's fine. How do I get there? Am I spot dropping? Am I matching? Am I, you know, where are my eyes? What's my discipline? How do I get there and do it effectively? Because another thing, oh, that was your gap. You got to look in the mirror before you say stuff like that. Did I teach him how to effectively defend it?
Right.
And you either did or you didn't, but that also comes with being honest with yourself.
Absolutely. And, you know, to kind of piggyback off of that, as an offensive coach, like getting on the board does nothing to me unless you give me a situation. Like don't just ask me my favorite play, because my favorite play depends on the situation we're in.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, if it's 4th and inches, if I just tell you my favorite play is 4 verts, well, I'm not going to throw my favorite play on 4th and inches. Like my favorite play on 4th and inches is going to be a quarterback sneak or a duo or something along the lines of just getting that inch, you know. So there's a lot that plays into favorite plays, and I think that goes along with scheme and technique, because if you have to figure out what your team's favorite play is in that go-to, that needed moment. And, you know, I think that's where our job differs from a college job, because colleges get to pick their guys to fit their scheme. High school coaches we don't get to pick our guys. We get who we get. So it might be like this year, like you just said, flip the page. Like our base might be a duo, counter power, quick games. And then next year it's like, man, we don't really have a strong running back, but we have a really strong offensive line. What can they do good to make this guy better?
And on top of that, you can't abandon mama either year to year.
No.
Once you have that core, then that's, to me, like you said, that's the difference between our game and their game is, man, once you have that core, whatever your home base is, whatever mama is, whatever your favorite stuff is that you think you could teach, because that goes into it too. What can you teach effectively? So there is some onus on the coach. So, like, for example, I know that I favor cover 3, cover 1, single high defenses, close the middle of the field, get guys near the line of scrimmage, that sort of stuff. I'm pretty confident in my ability to teach that. However, I have to, as a coach, step out of my comfort zone and realize, well, there's going to be some times you need quarters.
Yes.
You're going to need 2 high. You're going to need palms. You're going to need 2 read. You know? Hell, you might need to throw a nickel package in. And that's personnel-based, so, again, you can't really choose that year to year, but you might need some of that stuff. So you got to develop yourself in addition to developing your players. Talk about favorite play and situational. Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl last week. It was 4th and
31.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can say that again.
You know, I never found myself pulling for Auburn because no self-respecting LSU fan would, but goodness. They rushed 3. One of those linemen spied. Am I wrong? One of the linemen spied, so didn't even rush, as if he was going to catch Milroe if he took off. And then let him complete the pass in the smallest window. The coverage wasn't bad, but I mean, come on. But how often do you practice it? Do you practice for those situations?
Yeah.
You know, or did you just turn the page and say, we're going to see. I taught it. Let's see if it works. Did you work on it? I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that.
No,
that's
absolutely.
all stuff. And unfortunately, stuff like that has to bite you sometimes before you figure it out.
Or bite the opposing team. It's like, man, we need to work on that.
Yeah.
Glad that didn't happen to us.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about that, I mean, 4th and goal from the 31, shouldn't you just trust one of your base coverages, whatever defense you're most comfortable in, that you run the most, that you like the best? I mean, you're ever afraid that's going to give up 31 yards on one play?
Right. I agree with that too.
I'm with you. Man, we do this really well. I'm going to ride with it because we do it a lot. They're good at it. They know how to problem solve it.
In that situation, it's a bend but don't break.
There you go.
We can give up 20 yards. Like, just make the tackle. Keep him in front of you. Keep him inside.
Yeah, it almost seemed like they were so scared of him running that they allowed that to dictate how they were going to call the defense on that play. And that's such a low-risk situation there. You got 30 yards. Anybody can come up and stop him from crossing the goal line from there.
And the best part is a defensive coach, 4th and 31, it's 4th and goal.
Yeah.
It's not like we're on the minus 20 and there's 80 yards of space behind you. So I
Right.
got to defend the sticks. Plus, I can't let him get behind me.
No.
So that running, that might be a little more dangerous. No, dude. There's a goal line. There's 10 yards. I got to cover 10 yards of space, keep them out, and we are celebrating after we just lost to New Mexico State. You know, is that the Lobos or is that the Aggies? Which one
The
is
New
that?
Mexico State
It's the
Aggies, yeah.
Aggies,
the
yeah.
Aggies.
Yeah.
I just always thought Lobos was a cool name. But so anyway, I guess to put a button on that, you got to have enough scheme that you're comfortable teaching to where you could flip the page and do something different when you get a different kid walk through your door.
I agree with that.
So real quick, let's talk about process of the teaching. So give me a quick synopsis. Like, I know what my process is: Monday to Thursday, Friday game. You know, do you put in new stuff? Do you teach new stuff? Do you do like we said and flip another page in the playbook, or what do you do with that? How do you go about game planning for someone in a general sense?
Well, I mean, me and you, like you said, we talk a lot, and you have to have non-negotiables, and I think that's set at the beginning of the season. What I mean by that is, okay, no matter what, on Monday we're going to work our trick plays, and we're going to work our coming out minus 20, minus 10, minus 5. Tuesdays we're going to work third downs. Wednesdays we're going to work screens, and then Thursdays just put it all together. I guess that's the situational part of the process. As far as just week to week, I think one, you have to figure out, like we just say, go back to mama. Once you develop your identity, don't lose it. So I think you have to work your identity, even if it's really not the top of the play calling sheet that week. Don't lose mama. So I think you got to keep that in the process, and then along with, 90, I guess 5% of our games, 99% of our games are on Fridays. I think if it's not on the play call sheet by Wednesday at the end of practice, it's done.
And as a defensive coach, I'm kind of the same way with that as far as what I'm scratching and what I'm not. Like, so you do all your homework, you watch all the film, and you draw up your base alignments to their favorite stuff. And we saw a lot of tight end wing this year, a lot of trips nub, tight end trips, stuff that people run, but depending on what region of the state you live in, you may or may not see it a lot. You may see it a little. You may never see it. So we're still able to play base defense versus that and all of our coverages, but you make minor adjustments to alignment and things to help get the fits right or get the coverage where it needs to be a little quicker. So you make those minor tweaks to your base stuff. And I tell the kids, I say, so this is what we're doing. I introduce it during our PE period on the screen. We go over everybody's responsibility. We go out to practice. We walk through. We do their favorite stuff that day, and I'll get to each day in a second. But we do their favorite stuff that day. But by the end of the day, Monday, I tell the kids, I'm like, if this doesn't look good by the end of today, tomorrow, we're fixing it. Like we were changing it. Like if I have to scrap, so if I really thought, man, we're going to line up like this tight end wing and be able to run this coverage and that, and then I see it in live reps on Monday, and I'm like, nope, that's not going to work the way I imagined it would. We'll cut it, and we'll go back to something that we definitely know how to do. So that's where like the creative license as a coach, you kind of, that's really going to work. And then you see it with your own two eyes. You're like, nope, go back to what you know how to do in the way you would have aligned to that if you wouldn't known it was coming.
Right.
But Monday, Tuesday is base stuff for us, man. You got to work on what they're going to do the majority of the time. And then Wednesday, I call it the best of the rest. Small wrinkles, things they might have done a handful of times, but they don't live in it. Tricks if they got them. And then Thursday, that's your isolated situations. To me, that is largely a special teams, what to do after a safety.
I can't wait till we talk about special teams, by the way.
Oh, my God. What do you do after a safety? Onside kick, hands team, squib kicks. stuff that might only come up once in a game, but you got to work it. But to me, that's where you work it. Then offense, defense, that's where you work your end of game situations. Last play, second to last play, 2 minute, 4 minute.
No time field goal.
No time field goal. Like, how often do you practice that? Well, to me, that's what Thursday is for. Thursday is the catch-all day.
Right.
This stuff might happen once every 3 games, but we practice it every Thursday. That way we at least have reps at it.
And it's the day before the game. So,
Yes.
like, it's fresh in their minds.
Yeah, that special situation that never happens is still
Right.
fresh.
Hey, remember what we did yesterday?
Yeah.
Like, we're doing that now.
That's quick recall right there. Oh, man. Special teams. You're trying to get me fired up. I guess that's a good time to transition to the list, man. So, list guys. Rollins taught me this. So Rollins taught us last year. He said, man, in college you got these list guys. And in high school you got them too. It just depends on how organized you are. But you got the training room list, so the guys who are always hurt. You got the academic list, the guys who are always on the cusp of not being eligible, failing. You got the discipline list, the guys who are in ISS because they can't wear the right shoes to school. You know, and you got the list of, in general, of just the ones who just get on your nerves and you got to show all this attention to. So we're going to close today with who made the list for you this week?
I think Coach Brownfield can take this one over to start it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely go first here. It's I've been back and forth, and I'm just I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it kind of decided it for me. I'm going with Dion here, and here's why. Because I thought when they lost to Utah last week, season was over, 4-8. I thought back to those September press conferences. And the bravado. And look, I get it. You've got to exude confidence. You have to have your team believe that you believe in them.
Absolutely.
But, like, he sold all of us on a total fraud. I mean, this team was not anyway. They were riding high. Maybe he believed it. Maybe he didn't see what was coming. But, man, if he didn't, that's a knock on him in another way. But I just feel like he hyped for the sake of hyping, and there just wasn't much there. And I don't feel like he has gotten his due for what he's tried to sell the whole country here, because Colorado was everywhere in September, everywhere, and then where are they now?
I don't think he
Literally
fought a 4-8 season. Like, when he said, I'm bringing luggage, like, I don't think his luggage had 4-8 in it.
Let's just call it like it is. If anybody else on God's green earth talks that much trash, taking over that team, portal era or not, okay, yes, he got a lot of great players out the portal. Ole Miss does it every year, whatever. But if anybody else talks that, if Lane Kiffin talks that much trash and then goes 4-8 the first year in, everybody is crucifying him.
They
Because
crucified him over to get your popcorn.
they did, and that was a pretty stupid thing to say. So I'm not defending the Lane train here, even though I'm heavily on said Lane train. But I think, I'm not saying he's not a good coach. I'm not saying he didn't put together a good staff, but I think it's telling that 2 coaches left right away. 2 of his chief generals left, guy with a ton of experience, and the OC.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very telling, and I think it's telling that, well, we need to get new players. Well, you got some pretty good players because they had some flashes of greatness, man. You gotta do something with them in big-time ball. It's not enough just to have better players than everybody, because at that level, and I've had guys tell me this, you still got to coach them.
Yes,
you got to get them ready to play. So, G, who made the list for you, man?
Man, this one's been itching me for a while now. But Ryan Day from the quote-unquote Ohio State.
The Ohio State.
I think he was born at Ohio State with a silver spoon in his mouth. A little recap of the Ryan Day coaching career. Temple, I mean, he went through the gauntlet as a GA through multiple schools. I respect him for that, because the only people that respect GAs are GAs.
100%.
He played for Chip Kelly at the University of New Hampshire. Then he got a job with Temple. He got a job with Boston College, being the OC, where their offense was average. Okay, average. Then Chip Kelly hired him at Philly, where he had Mark Sanchez and Sam Bradford, and he's a quarterback guy, average quarterbacks. Then he went to San Francisco, where he had Blaine Gabbert and Colin Kaepernick, 2 average quarterbacks. Then he gets the Ohio State offensive coordinator job. Does okay. And then Urban Meyer gets canned for some mischievous stuff, mischievous, whatever. And he just gets born right into it.
He had a health issue, coach. Come
Oh,
on. He almost keeled over in the Michigan game a couple years back, I'm pretty sure. Sorry,
But then he inherits this Ohio State team that has been a front runner for a while. And I feel like you went from being average. There was never a climb like that showed, hey, you're getting better as a coach. I don't know him personally. I don't. That's just from like I feel like you got to see like levels. Okay, he's progressing. He's progressing. No, he was average his entire career until he took over the Ohio State team.
It sounds like he was a good recruiter with the right friends.
I mean,
That's what to me. That's what it seems like. From hearing you describe that, that's what it seems like. He's a good recruiter with the right friends.
and look, I hope I get to the point one day where somebody irrelevant talks crap about me, like I'm talking about Ryan Day right now. But at the same time, he made my list.
Well, if Ryan Day tweets at us with all of our 3 listeners, I say 3 listeners because there's 3 of us in this room. If Ryan Day happens to hear this and tweets at us, then we could consider issuing a formal apology. No, I'm kidding.
We have a 4th mic. He can come sit with us.
Well, he makes $85 gazillion a year. I don't think his feelings are going to be hurt too bad, and I think you're absolutely right. So my list. So who made my list? So I keep a list. Okay, not a real list, but
No, you do.
it's a. Ryan Day was born on 3rd, and I was born with a chip on my shoulder, so I don't know what to say. But people make my list.
Respectfully.
So mine's not a specific person. Mine's not even someone famous. Mine is just in general. So on the Caffeinated Coordinators podcast here, I'm going to tell you, and you probably hear me reference this a bunch of times. I don't care if you're a head coach, assistant, a position coach. I really, really detest when people, you heard the Cajun come out, detest. I really don't like I, me, my language. I don't like that first person language with regards to the team. That's my position group. That's my defense. That's my offense. That's my team. That's my coaches. That's my defensive coordinator. No. It's our team. And I know somebody's ultimately responsible. I just went on a rant earlier about the principal being where the buck stops. It's his or her school, but then again, it's our school because everybody has a piece to play in that. It's our football programs. Everybody has a piece to play in that. And to me, that goes a long way, especially from the top. Like if you're a head coach, giving people ownership where it's like, yeah, it is your offense and you are responsible. However, it's our team, and I want you to promote that team language and that team mentality throughout everything and part of the reason why it bothers me so much is because I really think it sends a subliminal message of possession and this is mine. It's not about you. It's about me, and you're just over here working for me. You're over here playing for me. I think it sends a subliminal message like, how do you create a family if there's no we, our, us?
And I think, to add to that, because that's a great point, the win or loss doesn't go on the quarterback. The win or loss doesn't go on the offense. It doesn't go on the defense. It doesn't go on the DC, the OC. Yeah, it goes on the record of the head coach, but like all in all, it goes on the team's record. For the sake of the season, it goes on the team's record.
That's right.
And I think, being with the head coach, you should be able to work with your head coach, not for your head coach. And I think that goes with that possession thing, because I feel like as assistant coaches, there's a common respect for your head coach. Like even if you're working with them, you're still going to respect their chair, and you're not going to step on their toes and think that y'all are even.
Coach, let's call it like we see it. If you're worth a damn as an assistant coach, you know the hierarchy.
Right.
You respect the hierarchy. You respect that person's knowledge, and you respect their position. That look, we all got one vote. He got one more than everybody put together.
Absolutely.
Good assistant coaches understand that, and I guess I'm gonna finish with this. you have to follow before you can lead. And I know that's a cliche, or that's a readily available quote that's out there, but that's something that I truly, when thinking about my list today, I was like, man, you got to spend time as an assistant before you could effectively understand how to be a leader of these guys, because the assistant coaches is like a fraternity. It's not us against nobody, but you're kind of all in those trenches together.
Right.
You know, you're chopping up the film, you're making the practice plans, you're doing all this stuff, and it's like, because the head coach is off doing head coach stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to answer to the principal. He's got to go talk to the community. He's got to go to the booster club, and assistants largely don't have to do any of that. So it's kind of like we're all in the trenches together, but when you ascend to that top role, man, you got to know what it was like for those other guys,
Yes,
and you can't take those guys for granted. But I think we're coming to an end here.
Brownfield. Preview?
Yeah, it's time to put this thing to sleep, man.
I love it.
Man, I thought this. I love this. I'm so excited.
This is great, man. I thought we had a great first day out here, man.
Absolutely.
And I hope we keep the wrestling themes, because, man, who doesn't love The Undertaker? But
finished my caffeinated drink. Got
Yeah.
a refill.
Yep, time to get a little refill before we go to class here. Thank you all for listening. I am the defensive coordinator, or a defensive coordinator, Scott Pellegrin, Scott Impel on Twitter and TikTok. Gee, tell them who you are and where to find you.
I am Tyler Gaspard, offensive coordinator, and I got to pull up my Twitter handle because I forgot.
You don't know your own Twitter handle?
I've changed it. It's Coach Gaspard and Coach Brownfield. You want to take us away?
Guys, it's been a blast. We're going to see y'all next time, which will be soon, very soon. I think we're going weekly here. Are we going weekly?
I think weekly. I like
think
it.
we are.
Weekly?
What's a preview of next week? Do we have one?
Yeah, well, let's see. Let's go. I really like that practice plan talk. Can we talk practice plans? Like
Organization
different,
of it.
yeah, like different styles, different.
Day-to-day practice plan.
Let's do an organizational. Yeah, I
There
like
you go.
that.
Before we get into
like
more
that.
football, a little more
yeah.
structured deal there.
It's off season right now for us, so
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
respectfully.
Back to the basics.
Let's go.
All right.